Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Foley is Pod. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the hardcore legend himself, ladies and gentlemen, Mick Foley. Mick, how are you, man?
Great to be here, Conrad. I haven't crossed my legs since we've been doing this show, right?
Well, this is a first.
Shows a certain feeling of comfort.
Wow.
But hopefully, if I get too comfortable and it's that we lose some of the edginess, we don't really have a lot of edginess on the show, do we?
Well, we've had burps on the show. We haven't yet had a fart. When we get to fart levels in our relationship, just like a real relationship, that's when you're comfortable. How long into the relationship were you and Mrs. Foley before you started farting in front of each other?
She still hasn't farted in front of me.
Really?
One time.
That was an accident.
Yeah. I said, what was that? And this is like 1990. She goes, that was a little fart, Mickey. And that was the only time I recall. Noelle will let one loose once in a while.
Oh, I'm sure she's glad to hear that we're letting that loose.
Once in a great while. I taught her, as I think every parent should, the secrets of the one cheek sneak. So, as popularized by...
Wait. Teach me, Obi-Wan. What is...
Not on the air.
What is a one cheek sneak?
Where you just kind of look around and let it slip out of one cheek. Yeah.
So you lift up a little.
A little bit, lift up. My favorite farting story was...
This is the best transition ever.
Carl Hutchinson, who's a English comic, opened for me for a few shows, and then he came back. When I came back a few years later, he opened again. And a lot of comics, they don't tell the same stories ever again. But by request, I said, you have to tell the story about farting on the students. And so he was a teacher, and instead of getting angry or yelling at the bad kids, he would just save up that little something extra when he was looking at a paper, and then he would look over and, oh, very good, with his posterior turned to the bad kid, and...
I love it.
Let one loose. Yeah, we've never done fart humor.
No.
Generally, I don't find them that funny.
Oh, I do.
You do? All right, okay. We're going to have to agree to disagree.
I don't want you to actually do it in this room with me. Now, if we're doing them on Zoom...
You know what? With that being said, I am going to break out a 30-second, maybe just a 30-second to 1 minute video of a flatulent Santa visiting a child's home.
I love that.
On Christmas Eve. It was the only way I could get Huey back in the green suit. We were laughing one day. We were going from the ECW show in Philadelphia. This was a monumental, I believe it was the Tower, I think it's Tower Theater. But regardless, it was the night that Sasha and Ashley...
Charlotte
Flair. They main evented, and they tore the house down. And that was the first female main event at a WWE House Show in a long, long time. And they really tore it down. It was this great atmosphere backstage. I'll tell you what, that's what I miss, are those moments where everything goes so well that you know you're probably not going to get to sleep because you're reliving every single moment of that match. And that was a time I was so glad my children got to go back there.
Yeah.
Because I was meeting up with Huey, Noelle, and Dewey. I'm the dad with the rhyming names. And then I was taking Huey from there further down, and we ended up going to a signing in Maryland, an independent show in West Virginia, and then we made the long trip to Orlando to watch Becky and Sasha in that outstanding NXT main event. But while we were driving, we just started joking around. Huey had been my faithful elf. We'd been doing it for 2 years. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if Santa had gas? You know,
that'd be hilarious.
And he'd say, oh, what's that, sir? Said, oh, what? Santa would reply, I didn't hear anything. And then a little louder, what? You heard it that time? No, I didn't. I think you must be hearing things, little buddy. And finally, after the fourth or fifth time, Santa confesses, okay, I've been holding it in for the last 10,000 homes.
I love it.
And he says, we have to do it.
It's fantastic.
We have to do it. And then he wants the fart spray. But as we in wrestling know from being ribbed, especially when it comes to like Kurt Hennig putting fart spray under the ring where there are guys waiting to emerge.
Oh, no.
So now you have grown men, wrestlers, big men, proud men, gagging and trying not to throw up underneath the ring before they make their, villainous return. So I know that stuff's gross.
Yes.
I argue it's no longer funny. It's gross.
Yes.
Perhaps a sugar cookie scent.
Yes.
A gingerbread scent. And he held out like he was in his option year. Like he was going to sit on the sidelines.
Nothing.
And then the next year, so he held out. He didn't do it 2015, but triumphant return in 2016. He showed up, and that's what will ensue. We will have the tale of the farting Santa.
Should we wait till we're closer to Christmas for that, maybe?
Yeah, let's do that in December.
Yeah.
When does this air, Conrad?
Tomorrow.
Oh, okay, great. So, before we get into the swing of things, please vote.
Yes.
Please vote. It's really important. There's a lot depending on it. And people tend to know which way I tilt. And I think it's important. I think there's a lot on the line. But if you feel strongly one way or the other, or just go out there and
express yourself.
Yeah, express yourself. That's I think it's
no
really important. Never more so than this year. And with that, no more politics. Let's get into the groove.
I just like the idea that, you're such a Santa fan. You think his toots smell like sugar cookies.
They should.
It would be fantastic.
They should. And when he did appear in all his flatulent glory, I might ask you to read, because I wrote this up.
I'd be glad to.
I wrote this up, and I was coming up with every fun way of describing. There's so many words that describe a fart anyway, but I don't think Sphincter Symphony was on the table until I coined that phrase.
Let me just ask. I'm just thinking about this, and I kind of want to live vicariously because this has kind of been part of your life. How long have you been Santa now? How many years? Decades, probably.
I started 10 years ago, so this is my 11th year.
I think with the right suit, I could make a Santa apprentice for you.
You want to do that?
I think we should do that.
All right.
I think in December, we need to get some suits, and we need to do some Santa stuff.
Do it.
I think it would be fun for the show.
You want to go with a theatrical beard, or you want to bleach that bad boy for authenticity?
Well, you put me on the spot, and my wife's not here to say no. So I say I don't shave it, and we just let it grow.
On
let
the...
let it grow.
Let it grow. On the documentary, the A&E documentary, I was growing the beard out all year. Then I came down with COVID the day before I was supposed to, or I heard that I was doing not an internal signing.
Virtual signing.
Virtual signing.
Internal would be painful.
Internal.
What? I'm telling you.
Once you get the pen.
But then you got to get the hand.
The hand, and you got all right. It sounds like something some people might pay good money for, though. A little internal Foley signing.
Can you imagine the Foley colon, the 3 colons of Foley? My gosh, what are we doing? We got to stop giving high spots ideas.
But
so
anyway. I get tested. First of all, I don't want to put anyone in jeopardy, so I just get in the car and I drive to Florida. By the time I get there, I'm sick as a dog. I stop just to pee and gas up, and sure enough, I had it. So the Santa you see me transform into on that show is actually a mid-March Santa, where we got a family to keep their tree up. And,
wow.
But it worked out nice in that my daughter, Noelle, did my bleaching, and Conrad, that was probably my 10th year bleacher. Last year I went with a theatrical beard because I think facts are facts. I make a living trying to remind people of how they felt when they were younger. Basically, that
You're
is
a nostalgia purveyor.
And that's in a sense what we do here on the show. And that's why I agreed to do it. You're like, we take people on a trip down memory lane.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? I think I can do almost as good a job with a theatrical beard. And I did. because I think I have other attributes that make up for that. You know, the heart of the Santa, you know, the love for it, and a nice suit and all those things. But I had been getting my beard bleached since 2012, and no doubt Noel did it in the most pain-free manner possible, and it came out looking great. So if you want to take that dive,
Okay.
all right, we can probably make that happen.
I look forward to that.
All right.
And I'm looking forward to today. We're going to be talking about your return to the WWE. It happened in late 2011, and then you had a up and down year for the company in 2012.
Indeed, I did.
You left TNA on June 5th, 2011, and that's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day.
Mm-hmm.
But realistically, did you think you would ever return to WWE, or did you think your wrestling days were behind you?
I thought I would come back for 1 or 2 matches a year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had suffered from that string of concussions in TNA, and that's what led to me, you know, the hard feelings there, which led me to saying to Terry Taylor, you know, they wanted me to take a little less money because I couldn't fulfill the final 2 matches that were on my contract. I argued that I did about 15 extra matches that weren't on the contract, but anyway, it was what it was. And then I had a meeting with Terry. I don't want to say I walked into his office because he was actually on the road. And I said, you know how you guys, you know, want me to take a little less? And he said, yeah. I said, why don't you take it all? And he looked at me and I just said, I lost faith in this company a long time ago. In retrospect, I should have shut my mouth, walked out to the mailbox every 2 weeks, collected the check, and been grateful to have it. But that's not what I did. And
That's not who you are.
Yeah, but I still wish I'd done that. It turned around that Dee Snider called me up, and there was an opening for for Celebrity Wife Swap. I didn't make what I would have if I'd stuck it out, but it was a nice, you know, like it was a nice finger in the dike type thing.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible, doesn't it?
I know
I'm
what you mean.
talking literally about a dike that holds back water and fingers. Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's an old expression.
old expression.
Yes. But I knew where you were going. Get out and vote, boys and girls. I don't know what to do here.
So wait. I'm gonna
talk about our friends at Athletic Greens.
I'm gonna streamline this. I'm gonna bring it back on board.
Okay.
One of the 2 things made my situation in TNA difficult, and that is when I was raising money for Rain.
Right.
That's I was a really
A big advocate for them for a long time.
and I worked on the hotline, and I put in, I think, 600 to 700 hours over the course of 2 years with a fictitious name. I did have someone come to a signing in rural Indiana, and she said, I know that you were, and there was a name, and she said, you saved my life. And she recounted the conversation that we'd had 10 years earlier. So I was really glad to do it. I was really, I was all on board for trying to raise money, because before the Me Too movement, nobody talked about sexual assault. There was no all-star. You know, it comes to Make-A-Wish and Special Olympics. It's easy to
raise awareness.
Yeah, you get an all-star team of celebrities, but nobody was standing in line especially to work on the hotline.
Right.
And so I took this really seriously, and I reached out to a bunch of people, and Dixie Carter had an incredibly generous offer, and then I told her, Dixie, I really appreciate that, but I feel like I have to tell you that your offer was matched by someone else. She goes, well, that's good. And I said, it was Vince McMahon. So the 2 biggest donations were from TNA, my current company, and WWE, my former company. And that's on top of the fact that WWE brought up my Countdown to Lockdown book on their show, arguably pushed it harder than TNA did. And I did an interview with Joey Styles while I was actively working for a different company. And Joey gets on the phone. He goes, Mick, is this really happening? They told me I was going to interview someone. I said, who? They said, Mick Foley. And he goes, I don't think that happens. Like, we don't interview people while they're working for another company. And so I wrote about it in one of those books, probably the Santa memoir, and said what seemed like a innocent lunch with an old, love looked to be, probably appeared to TNA to be like a sizzling affair with an old flame. And that put some... it put some pressure on me there, created some tension, but it also made it clear that there was going to be a spot for me in WWE when I left. And I did procure that valuable ambassadors slot, and I was pretty happy. But the downside is I was really feeling the effects from the concussions. I was really struggling with the depression that comes along with that. I think I even said on my A&E biography, they didn't go to details, but they took the soundbite, is that I would wake up certain mornings and I just go, oh, this doesn't even have the chance of being a good day, just because of the way I felt. And there's that fog that follows you. A lot of people have had the concussions. You feel like you're in a fog or you're underwater, but there's a muted feeling and you're walking around like with your senses are greatly dulled by these rapid concussions, because I was essentially getting one every time I got in the ring.
Wow.
And I did kind of realize it, because I remember there were times, like after Rick and I had that really good match, where I was like, okay, I could tell by like the adrenaline rush, but the ringing, there was this strange feeling where it's a combination of euphoria, adrenaline, in a way that from past history is going to manifest itself in a big downer within a day or two's time. But I remember thinking, hey, I'm lucky to be getting, it's a good salary in a tough economic time. What's the big deal? And then within 3-4 years, we learned so much about concussions, but instead of letting them recede, or the truth is, once I put the final period on a sentence in the Countdown to Lockdown book, and I know I'm going a little off and we're going to get back, but this is all a precursor to joining WWE. I had the King of the Mountain match in TNA, and I was writing about it for Countdown to Lockdown. And on that one night, I got my bell rung 3 times. Saw stars, temporarily blacked out. And every other time something like that had happened during the course of my career, I could watch the match back and go,
that's where it happened.
That's where it happened. The last time we showcased when Booker's super kick.
You could tell.
Yeah, you could tell. Boom, and then, okay, that's why I felt that way the next couple of days. But in this case, I would be like, okay, here come those forearms from Samoa Joe, which look like regular forearms. Here comes this kick, which doesn't look like it hurt. Here comes this thing. And I kept saying, maybe they're missing the camera angles. And then I actually wrote down, in truth, it was taking less and less to hurt me worse and worse for longer and longer periods of time. And once I put the period on that sentence, I should have never wrestled again. It should have made sense to me right there, but we all believe we have that final match in us. One more, brother. One more. And so when I did show up to WWE, I was greatly damaged. I came over. I was offered the ambassador's job.
Well, hang tight. Before we get there, I want to ask, you were doing, before you went back, you're doing some comedy tours. You're still working on some outside projects. You talked about doing the whole wife swap thing. Mm-hmm. Who reaches out to who about coming back? Does Vince call you? Does Johnny Ace call you? Do you recall?
I think Johnny did.
Okay. What's that sound like?
Hey, Meg, Johnny, want to know, want to know what you like to do? Come back. He almost opened up a menu and said, just select items.
Oh, wow. They just wanted you back.
To do whatever I wanted. Do you want to host shows? Do you want to work? Booking committee, not booking committee, but producer. And I said, hopefully he doesn't take us the wrong way, but I don't want to work that hands-on with Vince. And so I said...
From your previous experience.
Yeah. And I knew I was going to be an ambassador as well. So I just said a little bit here and there, a little nibble off a couple of these appetizers. And the agreement was I could continue to do these shows as long as they were not on TV nights.
Mm-hmm.
And Conrad, these shows took on such an added importance when I did realize the extent of the head injuries, because I was really having trouble. Short-term memory was really bad.
So that repetition.
Yeah, the
helped.
repetition. A year or so later, or maybe been 2 years, when I got off the stage in Boston with Chris Nowinski in the audience, I said, Chris, this might sound crazy, but I feel like I'm getting better. And he said, Mick, what you're doing on that stage is like gymnastics for the mind. It's the best form of exercise. I said, how so? He goes, well, you have stories that you've memorized, you have stories that you're working on,
Yep.
and you're playing off the crowd. So he called it mental gymnastics. And even though this run of the tour is over, and I'm not sure when I'll be going out on a regular basis again, I've got other things that keep my mind working, like this show.
Yes.
And as goofy as some of the videos I do, they do require thought,
Yes.
and it keeps me sharp.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm feeling really good. But when I was when I got to WWE and they sent me to Pittsburgh first for a full physical, I was measured at 6'1" and a quarter, and I was like, I know I used to be 6'4", right? Like 2 3/4 inches, a lot of height to lose. So now we go through all the X-rays, and I see my spine and it just taking a sharp turn to the left, and I said, what is that? And he goes, that looks like acquired scoliosis. And I know all about scoliosis because I was from that era where everyone would lift up their shirt gym class and someone come and look at your spine. So now my spine is hooking wide to the left, and it's called acquired because it comes on because largely, or at least in my case, because of other injuries that I favored. The body is really amazing in its ability to adapt, and the priority for the body is to keep your eyes straight.
Wow.
So if you are having trouble with a certain part of your body, your body will curve to adjust in a way that keeps your eyes centered straight, which is crazy when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And then as you start developing trouble, you start leaning certain ways, and that's I'm not trying to say that what I'm going through is what a young man with cerebral palsy or a young woman, but a lot of times they have to have the major corrective surgeries on their spines because their condition puts them in a situation where it's more comfortable to lean over, and they gradually do that for a period of years. So I said to the doctor, I said, would that account for the missing 3 inches? He goes, yes, it would. And I'll never forget, I took a flight home. I drive up, I approached the driveway. Noelle, I think, was getting the mail. And she goes, how'd it go, Dad? And I just looked at her and I just shook my head. I had tears in my eyes. Like I did not know just how bad it was. Compounded by that, Dr. Maroon in Pittsburgh, who's mentioned in the Concussion movie, not in a positive way. And I was like, that's my doctor. Yeah. Hey, that's my doctor. He was set to do some neurological work on my spine. And then I get a call from his assistant. He goes, look, we've been looking over your MRIs, your X-rays. He said, you've got too many issues. He goes, you've got muscular, neurological, skeletal, and even if we are able to help from a neurological standpoint, nothing we can do with those other things. And now you're so I'm looking at all these things I did during the course of my career. I'm paying a steeper price than I thought imaginable. Yeah. I thought, of course my hip's going to be sore, my knees are going to be hurting, I'm going to be arthritic. But I was like, now I'm curved around like this, it was really, I know saying tough times are relative. And there's other people who say, hey, I'd trade lives with you. I'm getting up at 6 a.m. I'm working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Nonetheless, this was pretty devastating for me. And so I was going back to WWE in a really in a
Dark
dark place. Yeah, it was a tough time for me. The concussions, seeing the fallout, seeing the how much I lost in height, how I had a back. First when he called me up, the assistant, he goes, okay, we got your MRIs back. This is before they even decided not to do the surgery. And I said, how is he? He goes, it's a bad MRI. I went, how bad? He goes, it's bad. And he proceeded to talk. There's like 5 different discs, all things that I kind of knew, but it's still, man, that stings when you actually see the proof. And now I find out it's not just the discs, it's the spine itself. Like, I think even people who don't like me or warned me, like, I think even they're like, whoa, Mother Nature and Father Time have kicked this guy's ass a little more than I think is necessary. But it was a tough time for me, a tough time, compounded by the fact that we didn't know Mickey had autism. We had moved from Long Island to Florida and back to Long Island, but now we're no longer in the house that he knew and loved. And I just felt like a failure as a father, like I let my son down because he was really, not knowing he had the autism and that he really thrived in regularity. It's like that scene in Beyond the Mat where I'm like, oh, I've never felt like a bad dad before. And now I've got that feeling, but it's like tenfold.
Wow.
So, I mean, it seemed to take out, in the matter of 6 months, I went from thinking, hey, I'm doing pretty good, to being like, wow, my life is really falling apart here.
Weird time to ask the follow-up, but I am curious, were there any corrective measures you were able to take for your spine?
Bang! The DDP yoga really helped. The lengthening, stretching, emphasis on some of those stretches. The swimming, there was a young lady I'd gone to high school with named Avril, who I found out specialized in corrective kinesiology. And she worked me really hard. She would come over for 3 days a week and work on me for a couple hours. When I say work on me, I mean I would do the exercises. And then I got to where those exercises became part of my life. And then she introduced me to swimming and water aerobics. And I'd been a pretty good swimmer. And then I started implementing the DDP yoga stuff. And that was in large part why I lost all that weight that I've since gained back.
How tall are you now?
You know what was cool? I'm afraid to measure myself.
I think you're taller than me, and I'm 6'3", so I think you're close.
Whoa. I do know, for those of you looking on social media, I took a photo with Nita Strauss, the great guitarist, and her boyfriend Josh, and I appear to be about a foot taller than both of them. And it's not like Josh is, I guess he's 5'5", 5'6", some of it might be an illusion where I'm,
forward or whatever.
In the foreground. But I noticed at a convention 4 years ago, probably, in South Florida, where I would stand up for every photo, and I was getting a lot of comments, which is, wow, you're taller than I thought. I get that anyway, but this was coming in rapid succession. So the next time I went to a doctor's office, I asked to be measured, and I was up to 6'3.5".
Wow, there you go.
So it did make a change. Yeah, it really did. So if you're out there, I'm not saying that every condition can be cured or greatly improved, but brother,
don't give up.
Don't give up. You don't know unless you try. And above all else, a positive mental outlook is more important than anything, as evidenced by Steve Mongo McMichael.
Yeah.
You never see a photo with Mongo where he
smiling.
doesn't have that light in his eyes. He's smiling. God bless you. This is that is, if not the cruelest disease, it's up there.
It is.
So you take this mountain of a man who knows his physical condition is decreasing every day, and yet he's got this amazing attitude. So things can get better, and even if they look their worst, you keep that positive mental attitude, which is obviously easier said than done.
Our next partner is a product I literally use every day. My wife and I started taking AG1 at the start of the pandemic because we wanted to optimize our immune system. Well, along the way, we learned that you could get better gut health, more energy, and I hated taking pills and vitamins. In fact, I always said, hey, if I'm going to take this, it better taste good. Well, guess what? AG1 does. What is this stuff? Athletic Greens, all right? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your focus, your recovery, your aging, all the things. It's also lifestyle friendly, whether you're trying to eat keto or paleo or vegan or dairy-free or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, and it still tastes great. It's going to support better sleep quality and recovery. It's going to support mental clarity and alertness. And my wife and I kind of look at it as like all-in-one nutritional insurance. But don't take our word for it. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews, and we believe it's time for you to reclaim your health right now and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition with just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Foley. That's athleticgreens.com/Foley to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. You were quoted in the Observer in August of 2011, where you said, unlike TNA, where if you weren't on the show, you weren't of value to the company, with the WWE, there's any number of things I could do. So we're just trying to find out what we want it to be and how big we want it to be. Nice little shot there at TNA.
You know what? I read that and I thought it wasn't meant to be a shot.
Because WWE just has more facets to their company than just a TV show.
But it was true at that time that, that was the main feature of the show is who's on the show. Mm-hmm. Whereas, I haven't been on WWE wrestling programming, meaning Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views in 2 years now. But yet I'm still working on projects.
Yes.
They're coming out with the...
Well, allegedly.
Can't talk about it. I can tell you that the Pops thing, brother... Sorry about that. I was a Buddy the Elf type Coca-Cola. Maybe not on that level. But,
Well, what makes you burp like that, Mick? I'm just curious.
What makes me burp like that is this fine energy drink from my good friend Black Adam. That's right.
Heck of a name.
Heck of a name.
I know a White Adam. He doesn't have a drink, though.
And although he is among the baddest ass superstars of all time, he could use my help. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is good. I always ask for it, right? I'm not much of an energy drinker, and I think this is the best one out there, meaning it's the least unhealthy.
I've still yet to try it, but I'm going to.
Hey, you got to try it.
I'm going to, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about when you come back. It's November 2nd, 2011.
Can I just elaborate just a little more?
Sure.
Probably at the time, there was a little bit of the offhanded, maybe a little bit. But I think the central truth is that there's far more for a non-wrestler to do.
Yes.
Because the case in TNA was I went from being the primary non-wrestling talker to being one of 5 non-wrestling talkers, and there really wasn't a spot for me. And it wasn't like they could say, hey, we're going to have you go out and do this. There's a whole bunch of things you can do beneath the radar in WWE.
Yes.
And that's why it just seemed like a better fit. And the truth is, it's home. It's really home. I'm out and about a lot, and I rarely get asked about my time in TNA.
Yeah.
I'm a WWE guy.
Yeah.
And I'm good with that.
So you make your big return. I love that. Boy, you're going to have them buzzing now.
Do you know the last time I reached out to Tony Khan?
Hypothetically, just so you know, they could slam the door in your face all they want, and it's okay. Your teeth are already out.
They're already out, bro.
It's no big deal. You're ready to roll.
Let me see what I said to TK. I'll just tell you. I can't take too long. I just reached out and said, hey, have you ever thought of procuring the rights of Thunderstruck or Thunder Rosa? This is about a year ago, just out of the blue. You know, not like, hey, can I have a... I was like, you ever think about securing the rights to... I just thought, man, that would be epic, right? Get the whole crowd
big
chatting.
time entrance song.
Yeah. And he thanked me for it, just wished me well, and then away I went.
How about that?
Good guy. I met Tony years and years ago.
Great guy.
Great guy.
I hate that, you know, and listen, we've been critical of TNA at times, but boy, Dixie Carter and her family invested so much money in wrestling and created so many opportunities for guys. And now Tony Khan's done the same thing.
Yeah.
And I feel bad as a guy who's been friendly with Tony before he owned AEW that, man, this guy loves it so much and has spent so much money. And yet people still like to dog it and take shots as if wrestling would be better without him. That's just not the case. Right? Like, wrestling's better with Tony Khan.
Much better.
Yes.
It's better for AEW.
Yes.
It's better for WWE.
Yeah. And all the people in the business.
I would tell you that I was talking to a mid-90s female talent.
Yeah.
Who told me she had never made over X amount of dollars a year. And I was shocked. Shocked. So now someone on that level in the female roster makes well over $1 million a year.
Yes.
And I don't know if they're doing that without the competition.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think WWE's doing it because it's the right thing. But they say a rising tide lifts all boats.
It did.
And look, when people say, are you a WWE loyalist? I said, first and foremost, I'm for the boys. And when I say boys, I mean collectively the men and the women.
The talent.
I want what's best for the talent. And ultimately, I do believe that what's best for the talent is best for the company. So I love WWE, but I love the fact that there's a strong competition.
Yeah.
And if they're claiming it's not competition, they're fooling themselves.
Well, case in point, how different would Cody Rhodes' career look if there wasn't an AEW?
Yeah.
I mean, and there's so many other great examples. I know we got sidetracked there. Man, I hope as wrestling fans we continue to encourage people to want to invest in wrestling, not shame them. Wrestling wouldn't be better if it was smaller. Wrestling's better when it's bigger.
Well, look at, you do the show with Jeff.
Yeah.
And so Jeff's probably told you about the time that the old TNA was literally on its last legs.
Yes.
They were asking and trying to hold out to pay off the loans, and can you hold out just a few weeks longer? Dixie was the PR person.
Yes.
Jeff had no idea what her dad did for a living. And she talked to Jeff afterwards, said, I think I might have a way to keep things going. And she became
an investor.
An angel investor in this world. What did she get for it? Nonstop abuse, grief. I was like, what kind of a self-loathing group of people are we to be blasting angrily this woman? You want to argue that she relied too much on established talent. That's one thing, right? But, there were some great moments in TNA. I completely disagreed with the idea that in order to be paid, you had to be on the show. Therefore, we're going to put everybody we can on each show so that we're not forcing these people who are already sleeping forward to a hotel room and cramped on coach class seats. We're going to send them home without any pay. Why not just change the way the pay structure was given so that you get paid if you show up, These are all minutia, but the main point is Dixie did a lot for the world of wrestling and got unparalleled grief because Tony Khan has done an amazing job for all of us.
Yes.
And he probably shouldn't be as hands-on as he is as far as social media. He's
very accessible.
He's very accessible and maybe too accessible. But if that's the knock on him, is that he cares too much,
I'll take that all day.
I'll take that all day, too. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Let's keep going here.
Hold on. I hope I don't turn an ankle jumping off my soapbox here.
Oh, well. I really thought when you said, hold on, we were about to have Foley's first fart. I'm glad we didn't get that because I was like holding my breath a little and you said, hold on. Like,
accompanied by sugar cookies.
Yes. Now, that would be fine. But I bet yours smell more like Whataburger if I had to guess.
I'm going to tell you a secret here.
Okay.
When I was on the set of Peanut Butter Falcon, I saw...
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah, oh, man, it's such a great movie. Small part, but that didn't stop Jimmy Fallon from raving about my role when he had Dakota Johnson on the show.
I love it.
She's talking about it. He goes, by the way, Mick Foley is just great in this movie. And Dakota looks like she's thinking the same thing I'm thinking, which is he's in it for 45 seconds.
Right.
So she goes, yeah, he is. He goes, that guy's the greatest. That's Jimmy. Jimmy, who I met one time, when The Rock hosted Saturday Night Live. But get me back on gear. Where was it?
So we're talking about your fart smelling like Whataburger?
Yes. So I see the ladies from costuming and laundry, and they're like whispering and they're laughing at me. And I walk over. I said, "What? Not confrontational, but what are you laughing about?" She goes, "We know something you don't know." And I go, "What is it?" And she goes, "You really want to know?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "You don't smell." I said, "What?" And she goes, "Don't get me wrong. You perspire heavily, but you don't smell." She goes, "Other people, they smell." And the only thing I could think of is because I was eating so clean at the time that what I was putting into my system was not coming out in a foul way. So there, you have it. I don't smell. Although my wife has proof.
I was going to say.
Yeah, you might want to bring her on the show.
Yeah.
You think we could bring all the Foleys on for
Please.
Christmas
You know
extravaganza?
We need to bring the green screen, and we'll do a little Foley Christmas special up there.
We could do that.
Yeah. Me and Grillo, we'll take this show on the road.
Let's do that. Maybe in
we
the
don't have
background
to have the Foleys come to you.
Background of the Great Smoky Mountains. Maybe we have a little snow there. All right. Okay.
I'm for it. So your big triumphant return. We got to figure out how big a splash we want to make at a house show in Dublin, November 2nd, 2011. Meltzer would say this: Foley came out as a surprise, and the crowd went crazy for him. Miz came out and cut a promo saying that nobody cares about Foley anymore. Morrison and Cena came out. Cena and Morrison beat R-Truth and Miz with Foley as the referee when Cena pinned Miz after the attitude adjustment. You also had a chance to have some hijinks in the Punk Del Rio match for the world title. Somehow Miz winds up in there. He takes the GTS, the attitude adjustment, the Starship Pain, and even the Mr. Sacco. Worked a couple of house shows in Manchester, Newcastle. Boy, it's a different company you're coming back to. It is cool that you just happen to be over there doing your comedy tour.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised that this is how you come back. But
yeah, house show in Dublin. It's not the way people usually do it. So I was in catering. The first person I see is Edge, and he does that double take. It's like, whoa, this is a surprise. He goes, a good surprise, but this is not where we expect to see you.
Right.
You expect to see old friends at Raw,
MSG.
yeah, MSG, things like that, but not in Dublin. So I not only remember the thing with Miz, I remember the promo which Miz delivered at my urging. He had made fun of me for being a Tori Amos fan.
okay.
And then he goes, yeah, Foley, you used to be somebody, but let me tell you something about used to be's. Used to be's don't count anymore. They just lie on the floor till you sweep them away. And I looked at him, I said, did you just quote Neil Diamond? And then he begged, no, because it sounded a lot to me like you were quoting Neil Diamond. And so he had confessed to quoting, You Don't Bring Me Flowers. With Neil Diamond.
My gosh.
And it was just fun. It was the idea that you could do anything. It's a house show. It was really fun. It was really a low-key way to come back.
Yeah.
And my schedule just worked out. Like I called Johnny Ace a couple days before. I was like, Johnny, I'm in Dublin the day before you guys are there.
Why not?
And I've got a day off. And that's how it worked in Manchester and Newcastle. It just happened to work out with my tour. So
How about that?
It was a nice, fun way to come back. But then when I did make that TV return, brother, I came back with a whimper.
Well, it happened a 3-hour Raw in Boston, November 14th, 2011. Foley's going to sign the petition, and it's time for the reprise of This Is Your Life for John Cena. And the story here is you had 2 goals. The first is to make Cena and Rock friends before their tag match at Survivor Series. And the second is to get the crowd in Boston to cheer Cena. Meltzer would say, of course, both backfired. When Foley praised Cena, he was booed. Yes, in his debut, They played a music video of Cena as a little kid. They brought out Cena's Little League Baseball coach, played by Jimmy Vargas, an area indie wrestler. He talked about how in the clutch, Cena struck out. And Cena noted he struck out looking. Next was the return of Barry Buchanan, and they showed clips of the original heel rapper Cena with Buchanan as his sidekick, B Squared. And first, he talked about how his team with Cena was the best time of his career. But then he said he got fired, divorced, lost all his money. His dog gave him rabies. And Cena ruined his life and left. And then Foley introduced John Cena Sr. Cena Sr., of course, was great, yelling at the fans for booing
My
his
son doesn't suck. You suck.
saying how hard his son works, and the fans.
You have no idea how hard my son works.
Hard.
My kids ran around imitating Mr. Cena for the next 2 years.
Cena Sr. acted horrified at how bad the segment was doing. It's weird to describe it because it was terrible, but it had that train wreck quality that always draws ratings.
It was supposed to be terrible.
It was supposed to be terrible.
It did say that?
Yes.
Ah, there you go.
Cena said this segment was a catastrophe and went to leave. Cena didn't say much here, but he was great in his facial, selling the idea that this whole thing was awful, and how every time people were pandering to the people, trying to get him cheered, the people booed him even more. Foley told him to stay and teased they were bringing an ex-girlfriend, but The Rock's music played. He walked to the ring, gave Foley a rock bottom, and left. Listen, this is your life segment is one of the most famous segments in history. I get this as a nod to it, but maybe we should have done that week 2 for you. Maybe.
It's not the way to make a return.
No.
But here, so...
It's a big main event thing, though.
It is. I mean, it is helping build that program.
Yes.
But as far as making an impactful return,
yep.
Not the way I should have gone. But one thing to keep in mind is, man, I don't want to go so heavy on the concussions, but they will make you doubt your sense of worth.
Okay.
A lot of people have felt that even stronger than I have. Some guys, a former Oriole player who was in the front office took his own life because of the constant badgering that goes with that job. But now he's got the inability to take that because of the head injuries. So what I should have done, I should have said to Brian, listen, I get that's fun, and I admire the idea of failing on purpose. I really do. I'd be happy to do that in, maybe not week 2, but 2-3 months into my return. But maybe I should do something a little different for my first show. That's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to make waves. I did admire the idea that it was supposed to fail on purpose. I respected that. It was something that was going to build the program.
Yeah.
But it probably wasn't the right way to come back out of the gate after 3 years.
Yeah. Well, we do get a fun skit with you doing the SmackDown on November 29th in Charlotte. It's a live SmackDown. And again, it's November 29th. So, of course, it's a Christmas show.
Of course.
A month early. And here you are. And Booker T's here dressed like a skinny Santa. You're going to ask him to do a spinneroonie like a dreidel for the Jewish viewers. They play the dreidel music. You're singing it. Meltzer would say, you really could see why Major Demo doesn't go to the shows a lot of time.
What does that mean?
Booker's Santa wig comes off while he's doing the spinneroonie. Rhodes comes out. He's the first guy on the show not in a costume. Of course, you're going to set up Rhodes versus Booker. But what do you remember about this? You're doing Santa.
Yeah.
You're having some fun with Booker. Mm-hmm. Feels like this would be your speed.
Yeah. The dreidel thing, I'm all in on that.
Yeah.
Look, I know some people don't appreciate my love of the absurd, but I do like that stuff. I do remember cutting a promo for it on my way to Santa's Village, and it was like, who will get who will get something, who will get candy in their stockings, and who will get coal, and then they show the image of Michael Cole. And later on, you will see that's kind of my official announcer voice, the one that I used on The cookie video. That was really,
5-star effort.
Compelling. And so I will do that one of this. It's kind of my official voice, and I like it. And I may have taken a little bit of what John Cena brought to the table when he announced Richard the Refrigerator Perry as the celebrity inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame, because he had that old-time NFL Films announcer voice, and I liked it, and I think I may have borrowed it. Thank you, John.
So next up, we see you on the Slammies in Norfolk. It's going to be December 12th.
So I'm being used quite regularly at this point. Every couple weeks I'm on that show.
Yep. You're doing the Holy Bleep moment of the year with Ted DiBiase. And then you have an appearance in Anaheim, your first appearance of 2012. It opens with a long interview segment. You're out first, and you bring up doing the This Is Your Life John Cena thing. They boo. You talk about your career. You mentioned that you headlined at WrestleMania at the Honda Center. You talked about going to the Disneyland before and all that jazz. And out comes Ziggler and Vicky Guerrero. And you're already in a segment talking about the Rumble. Talk to me about how it comes about where they're at least discussing with you the idea. What if you did a Rumble match?
Well, yeah, the idea was before, and I'm jumping ahead, before I failed my impact test to gauge head injuries, that I would do 1 or 2 matches a year, and that the Rumble is kind of a safe way, dipping your toes in the shallow end of the pool. And it also was done in a way where I thought it was kind of meaningful, where CM Punk even alluded to the fact that, hey, Mick Foley's in the Rumble. I would love to face Mick Foley for the title. And I think it's safe to say, out of the 30 people who were in there, and I know there have been a few Rumbles where we've had more, it would be generous to say that 10 of those people could conceivably be in the mix for that big slot at WrestleMania. Probably 5 or 6.
Yes.
But I think when you bring back somebody and he
has the pedigree.
He has a pedigree that while you are watching that Rumble, you believe that guy stands a chance.
Yeah.
And I think I had worked hard enough and done enough to where I was that guy who stood a chance. And one of the things I regret is I thought I had a pretty good storyline for Ziggler, especially because Ziggler was a guy who to this day people don't think has gotten the push he should have. At that time with Vicky Guerrero, the issue was I didn't believe it the same way that Edge made me believe it. Edge made me believe not that he was in love with Vicky, but that he was using Vicky and he really sunk his teeth into it. You know, I know I already used the word absurd, but when I thought Edge was done and his career was over, I said, oh, he embraced the ridiculous. That's what I said, not the absurd. Like, Edge really put everything he had into every moment, no matter how ridiculous it was. And sometimes the more ridiculous it was, the more effective it was because of the portrayal. And I think when he was with Vicky, you sense this guy is going to, we know he doesn't love her.
Yeah.
But he is going to use her for everything he can before discarding the bones. And I never got that feeling with Dolph. There was always I don't get this. I know she's wearing the cougar thing. It didn't have the same feeling of authenticity that the Edge angle did.
Yeah.
So I had pitched an idea involving Amy Schumer, who wanted to be in WWE. Sent it. Maybe I will find the email and show it to you in an upcoming episode. I rarely get that involved where I write to the powers that be and say, I believe this woman is going to be a big star. She has this background with Dolph. They broke up because she claims he was too athletic. This feeds perfectly into his storyline and his character. And that was dismissed. But what we got, what was shot down or not utilized, is that I wanted John Laurinaitis. Now, you tell me what movie and now popular show. This is long before it had its second life as an amazing TV show. I wanted John Laurinaitis to pull Dolph aside and say, did you know in order to come back to WWE, every superstar has to have a full and complete medical evaluation? And Dolph would nod his head and go, Mick Foley has a partially torn right anterior cruciate ligament. Take him out. And then Dolph would go, but Johnny, I can beat this guy. But Sensei, I can beat this guy.
Yeah, Karate Kid.
Take him out. And so now you're going to have a heel specifically taking out the body part of a beloved veteran, which I thought would be great for Dolph and maybe result in a singles match in which I would happily, joyfully put him over.
Yeah.
And I thought Dolph is good enough to carry me, right? He's
What
one
if
of
Mr. Fuji came out and rubbed his hands together?
I thought it was Miyagi.
Oh, well,
Miyagi.
Well, but if Ziggler's is playing Johnny, and Mr. Ace is the sensei saying sweep the leg, do you have a problem with that? Fuji making a random appearance.
I believe Fuji was deceased by that time. We could check. One of
Maybe
the great
Pat Moreno was
moments,
still
and listen,
around.
I'm putting wrestlers on call,
Yeah.
on notice. I'm putting the powers that be creative on notice. Everyone who loves the creative process of wrestling and character development owes it to themselves to watch at least one season of Cobra Kai
Oh, it was good.
to
Yeah.
see what they do with Johnny Lawrence.
By the way, Fuji was with us till 2016. He could have done this.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, I agree with you. Cobra Kai, great storytelling.
Great, and Johnny Lawrence, and to see the way that Ralph Macchio willingly plays the straight man so that Johnny can have the shinier moments.
Yes.
It's really it's really great. And I will tell you, I don't want to spoil it for anyone out there, but in the finale of the latest season of
I petered
Cobra Kai,
out on it. Should I tag back in?
Johnny Lawrence makes a comeback of Steamboat-esque
Wow.
proportions.
Are there arm drags? Maybe.
There are.
Oh, arm drags. Well,
No,
man.
there are not. But it is a better performance. I will say that Johnny Lawrence turns in a better performance in the finale of Karate Kid than Steamboat did at the Temple of Tranquility.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have to check it out. I thought we were going with the Al Snow joke there. So listen, we get a fun appearance here where you're actually going to come back out and there's going to be some physicality. The main event of this show is Mark Henry and Dolph Ziggler and Mr. Otunga taking on Jericho, Punk, and Bryan. And you're going to come out, tell the referee that Johnny Ace has given you authorization to come out. Punk makes the hot tag to you. You throw a couple of hot punches, hit the double arm DDT, and then the Sacco. There's the win. Of course, here comes Johnny Ace, who says he never gave the authorization. Punk grabs the mic, cuts a hell of a promo on Johnny Ace, says Ace wants to screw him out of the title, and he's jealous because Laurinaitis was never as good as him. He's never accomplished anything in his career. And in fact, Punk accomplished more in the last year than he did in his entire career. He talked about being the brother of Road Warrior Animal, but he never made it as a pro wrestler, blah, blah, blah. The Johnny Ace Punk stuff, boy, that was some good stuff, was it not?
And I think, some people have soured on Punk because of the backstage
Recent
fight.
stuff, yeah.
But brother, he was the glue that was holding that company together for a long time.
Yes.
He put on good to great matches on a nightly basis, and his promos were top.
best.
They were the best in the business, I think, at that time.
Yes.
Especially the way that he would draw people in. I'll give you an example. Have you ever? I know people expect me to go off on tangents here, right?
Yeah, it's the best part of the show.
That's part of the show. So have I told you my story about my backstage promo with Moxley in Pittsburgh before Moxley's match with Brock?
I don't think so.
It was a really good learning experience because I find out it's a backstage promo and not an in-ring promo, which takes a little life out of me. And then I think, let me look at the glass half full. You can do some things backstage without worrying about the
Crowd
pop.
response.
Crowd response. You can make points that you can't make in ring. So I'm down for this. Dewey, my oldest son, is working for WWE at that time. He sees the promo I'm supposed to deliver, tells my wife, Dad's not going to like this promo. My wife says, don't worry about Dad. Dad's been around a long time. So I'm sitting with a pre-man Becky Lynch, right? Becky's a part of the mix, but nowhere near as big as she will go on to be.
Pre-man Becky. I'm with you, Melanie.
Yeah, pre-man.
Steampunk Becky Lynch.
Steampunk Becky Lynch, who is not being used up to her potential.
Yes.
Which is part of what made the turn with Charlotte so much.
Yes.
When people were chanting, I was sitting with people and they go, why are they chanting you deserved it to Charlotte? I said, I don't think they're saying you deserved it to Charlotte. I think they're saying you deserve it to Becky. Deserve what? I said, I think they believe this is going to be the push they wanted her to have. So in a weird way, being underutilized served as a great
underdog story.
Yeah, underdog story. So I'm sitting with Becky. I'm given the promo that I have heard I'm not going to appreciate. And I look it over for a few minutes, and now the writer comes back, and I'm still with Becky. And he goes, what do you think? I said, I think it's more humorous in tone than it should be. I said, remember, I'm going to be giving the barbed wire bat to we called him Dean at the time, Moxley. Okay, I said, so I don't think I should be doing the cheap pops and things like that. I said, overall, I said, too humorous. And once I give him the bat, I don't think we need a witty retort. I don't think anything is as powerful as
the bat.
Dean looking at the bat. And I went through point after point after point after point. And then the guy's taking all these notes. He walks away, and I look at Becky, and I said, did you notice how this promo now bears no resemblance to the one that I was given, but I never made the writer feel that it wasn't his? And Becky looks at me and goes, you're good. And I said, Becky, sometimes the biggest battles you will fight don't take place in the ring, but you have to know when to, there's only a few moments you can have where you say, I won't do this. If you can finesse it and make somebody feel good and make them feel like it's their promo, that's the way you should go. I'm getting to that because that's not the way Punk did things. Punk would crumple up a paper and throw it down. But anyway, there's this other part of this promo that to me, it was pretty magical. And I will probably get that little, tingle thing when I do it. So I have this line I want to pass by Moxley, and he's still kind of this weird dude who's kind of kayfabing everybody, and I've got this past little relationship with him based on the indie thing. So I said, hey, John, there's this thing I wanted to run by you. And he says, okay, let me hear it. And I said, I run by the promo, and I said, I want to say, when I try to urge you not to take this match, he's going to say, why'd you go up on top of that cell in Pittsburgh? And I go, I'm Mick Foley, that's what I do. And he goes, well, I'm Dean Ambrose, and this is what I do. And then I keep talking. He goes, hold on a second. I said, what? He goes, yeah, I like that. I go, which part of it do you like? He goes, I like that. I'm Dean Ambrose, and that's what I do. And so we rehearse it backstage one time. And they go, well, would you like to try it again? I said, I just got goosebumps on a rehearsal. I think we're good. And then we film it, and I hear the crowd pop in a way that they don't usually pop for backstage promos. And I came out of there feeling so fulfilled because I had a little bit of a vision.
Yep.
We brought it together, and I thought when I brought out that bat, and sure enough, no witty retort would have been more valuable than just Jon Moxley looking at that bat. And so that was my way of preparing you to say what Punk would do is he was known to crumple it up, say it's garbage. But in this case, they come to him, and the opening line is, oh, look what's just floated in from the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And Phil looks at the guy and goes, this is Mick Foley. He's one of the best wrestlers of all time. We know he's heavy. I'm not going to go there. That's cheap heat. I'm going to regard him. And that was his way of establishing it. And at that time, I was having a big problem with my memory. Couldn't remember much. And I really needed the coaching from Heyman, So there was one promo, and I know I might be jumping ahead. This is the Jerry Lawler promo, where they're going to start dogging on Lawler. And Paul Heyman says, He looks me in the eyes and he goes, when we get out there, like, I don't know if he called himself the devil incarnate, but the worst person, the evil that's who I am. Treat me as such. And I'm wondering what I'm going to say. And they start badmouthing, and I come out, and that's where I just said the simple line. I said, Jerry Lawler was dead. He was dead. And it was like it fired up people. I realized later on that what I was doing was the line from Almost Famous, where the young impressionable kid finds out that Penny Lane had been traded for a case of beer.
Yeah.
And she laughs it off, and he goes, I was there. I was there. And afterwards, on the way home, I'm thinking, that was Almost Famous. He was dead. Then you emphasize that second point, the same point a second time, but with much more of vociferousness.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden, partially because of Paul, partially because of Phil, in large part because of Punk, I start to regain my sense of confidence in my ability to cut promos.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that you're able to talk positively about Punk. It feels like it's not in fashion.
It's not in fashion right now,
which is not fair.
But I think you need to point out the fact that he lifted people's games.
Yes.
In ways you wouldn't expect.
I got back into wrestling because of his pipe bomb promo.
Yeah, a pipe bomb promo. There was a guy named Tim Kale who he helped me out on my socials for a while, but he was a great writer. And he wrote this great article about how so much of what had happened positively in wrestling could be traced back to that pipe bomb promo.
Yeah.
It's worth a read. Tim Kale. I'll come a couple weeks. I'll find it and I'll repost it.
All right, boys and girls, the nights are getting longer, but the breeze isn't the only thing that's getting stiff. Come on, you already know the deal. This episode of Foleys Pod is proudly sponsored by Blue Chew. And guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom. You know, when it's time to step up to the plate, that's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as both Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. You can take these dudes anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. As Mick and I always say, think of it as like a hot tag for your wiener. Now, the process is simple. You'll sign up at BlueChew.com. You'll consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, well, you'll receive your prescription within days. And here's the best part. It's all online, y'all. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package, but there won't be anything discreet about your package. Come on. If you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. We're talking about having better sex, guys. Come on. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code Foley at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code is Foley to receive your first month for free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And oh yeah, we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. So let's talk about the Royal Rumble, man. First of all, you get to win a match on Raw, which is cool. But now we're doing a Rumble match. I can't believe it. Over 10 years ago now in St. Louis. It's going to be ultimately won by Sheamus. But you're in it, man.
By the way, just an aside to say, what a freaking amazing year Sheamus is having.
Oh, he's unbelievable.
And what is he, 45?
What's crazy is somebody pointed out on Twitter, and I forget who, but they pointed out that he's older now than Jake was when he came back to the WWF in 96. And boy, you couldn't tell it. Sheamus looks younger and better than ever. I think he might be having one of the best years of his career. And
at this age, after coming back from a serious back injury,
yeah,
man,
at his height and weight, that's not normal. And he's just, it's almost like he's like drinking whatever Dustin Rhodes has been drinking. Like something's going around, man. These guys are somehow getting better. What is that?
That's the spot I can point to on my forearm that still hurts from 2016
WrestleMania.
When Sheamus looked at me before he went out and he said, I want you to hit me as hard as you can out there, fella. And I said, I think I can make it look good without doing that. He said, as hard as you can. And he walked away. And all of a sudden, I felt this great weight lifted off my shoulder.
No pressure.
And when I got in there, only the second time in my career, the other time being when Triple H brought out the best in me when we were building up our big match in 2000, where I was like, I think somebody sped up that video because I don't move that fast. So I had dropped 50 big ones, and I would go on to drop another 50 more and then gain all of it back. But at that time, I'd been working really hard, especially aquatically. When you throw hooks and uppercuts underwater for periods of time, 30, 45 seconds, you throw them as hard as you can. It's a heck of an upper body workout. It really is. And so I had some endurance at that time, and I was letting them go in the corner, man, faster and harder than I think I ever had. And I remember Huey, my son, he was with me. Two of the other kids were with me, and on the way home, I got this message from Avril, the one who helped me with the transformation, and she's like, are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you this? And Huey says, Dad, is Avril a pain in the neck? I go, do you think she is? He goes, yeah. I said, do you think I would have been in that ring last night without her? He said, no. I said, sometimes you need a pain in the neck, in your life. So Avril, if you're listening, thank you very much. I know she's probably disappointed. I put on all that weight back, but man, it really helped me. And that's shoot, man. That is right here where I hit Sheamus 20 times in a row. He's fine. He was fine 5 minutes. It probably was fine from the moment I did it. 5 minutes later, he was fine, and here I am.
All these years later.
6 years later, can point to the exact spot where I hit that hard-headed SOB as many times as I could.
Shout out to Sheamus. Great guy, too.
Yeah.
I think he lives in your neck of the woods,
He
too,
does, yeah.
So you come in at 7 minutes and 57 seconds. Meltzer, not always the biggest fan. Foley should not have tried to run to the ring and instead walked, because by not being able to run at all, it made him seem like someone who shouldn't be in there. The crowd went nuts for him.
Anyway, they felt like they're giving me a pass. That's what happens when.
Yes, they did. More than anyone thus far. Foley gives Rhodes a double arm DDT. The crowd went crazy for Ricardo Rodriguez. It's an interesting time. Santino Marella's here.
Yeah.
You get to do Mr. Sacco and the Cobra Hand.
Yeah.
In the end, Rhodes is going to throw you out. 14 minutes, 46 seconds. How'd you feel about it? You're in there working with a young Cody Rhodes. You got Santino, who's borrowing a page out of your book.
Yeah.
This is fun stuff. Did you have a good time?
Well, I did, but I was alarmed, really shocked by how quickly I gassed out, even after
doing some cardio.
Even after trying to work on it. At that point, my back was really bad. This dates back to when I do the comeback matches in TNA, and my back was so bad that history had taught me that if I worked too hard, I was going to hurt my back and negate any process.
Negate, maybe?
Negate any process.
Delegate and negate hooked up. They made a Neligate baby.
It was fun to be out there with Ricardo.
Yeah.
Because they were doing that split and with him and Del Rio. No one had seen what Ricardo could do, which is really impressive.
You just saw him recently,
Yeah,
right?
I did. I saw him at the Baltimore Celeb Fest. And he's been teaching people in Egypt. I think he's going to be working with a promotion in Pennsylvania. He's a really good guy. Added so much to that
presentation.
The presentation was great. Still feel like maybe we can revisit for Christmas 10 years ago when Santa was run over by a car and his reactions. It was just incredible. I know this episode is not about Ricardo any more than it's about Sheamus, but I want to give credit where it's due, and it was cool to be out there with him. And then we have the matchup, the showdown of the century, Sacco versus Cobra. And the crazy thing is, I come back from the crazy, surreal, whatever you want to say. I come back, and for only the fourth time in my career, I believe, I'm given a standing ovation by the people watching, my colleagues. And I'm thinking to myself, really? Really? Because the other three standing O's were like coming back after the I Quit match with The Rock, the match with the Undertaker, the little something we did inside the cell, like things where I was really in need of medical attention. And then I get a standing ovation for this, like that's what I did. This, and then my chest hurt for about 4 days because of my cardiovascular conditioning. It was next to nothing. Really next to nothing. It was really difficult. And so when I go to conventions and I see like the photo I took that day being like sold as a Cactus Jack photo, I'm like, first of all, it's not Cactus. That's out of shape Mick Foley. Let's find a real Cactus Jack photo. But people, like that, right?
Yeah.
But it was amazing how I believe that's gone on, when people talk about great moments of the Royal Rumble.
Sure.
People consider that one, and it still stands the test of time.
Yeah, Hogan Warrior doing a face-off, you and Santino, same. You pop up at WrestleMania backstage. It's unfortunately just a backstage vignette with you and Santino and the guy from Deadliest Catch.
Right.
But there's some other stories coming out of that weekend. Here's from the Observer. Dean Ambrose and Foley did an angle over the weekend of Fan Access that was filmed for YouTube to make it appear as if somebody was just filming and suddenly there was a confrontation. Foley was talking to fans when Ambrose approached him and blamed him for 14-year-olds ruining their lives and trying to emulate him, and that somebody needs to hold him accountable for his actions, which were criminal. And we'll play that footage now. Mick, was it your idea to work with the now Jon Moxley? How does this whole angle
No, it wasn't. I remember it well because all four of my children at that time were big WWE fans, huge WWE fans, and they liked going to matches. Yeah. And I thought, you know what? As long as I'm still Mick effing Foley, I'm going to take them to as many shows as they want to go to, even if I'm not on them. So it was not uncommon when we were in the New York area for me to just be chilling by the monitor watching the matches. And that was the case for the post-Christmas show in 2000. Post-Christmas 2000. What year are we on? We're
2012.
2012. So we're early to 2012, right?
Yep.
So in 2011... December 26, 2011. No, it's got to be 2012. It's got to be 2000. I'm sorry, That's off by a year. The Ambrose thing took place
in April of 2012.
April 2012. And I did the all right. April 2000. All right, so it is Christmas. It's the day after Christmas 2011 that I take my children to the house show. How the heck did I'm just trying to think. My Hall of Fame induction was, all right, must be separate incidents, but it was, so I think what it was I took them again December 26, 2012. And that's where Hunter asked if he'd speak me in his office, and I feel like I'm going to be fired as an ambassador. And then I'll just go, okay, I'm grateful for that opportunity. Thank you. Instead, he asked me if I wanted to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
So a year earlier, I'm getting my years confused, but it's the same place. It's the same post-Christmas house show at Madison Square Garden. He calls me into his office. He says, hey, you're pretty big on social media, right? At that time, I think I had about 250,000 Twitter followers. Almost nothing on Facebook, and I wasn't on Instagram at all. He goes, we wanted to do this grassroots thing, and he spelled it out to me, and he said, we got this guy. And I'd seen Jon Moxley, doing dark matches. He didn't really stand out, he didn't stand out at that time because,
Did you know about his CZW stuff?
No,
okay.
Not at that time. Okay. Not when, and then I did a little research. Oh, this is something we can do. You know, we could, all right. I said, yeah, let me do it. We were going to build it up via this thing at Mania.
Yeah.
Right. So it's in the works. John interrupts me with Ed, Koski, yeah. Ed Koski, and we're off to the races. The problem was that unlike the days where my wife could drop me off at the cameraman's house in White Plains, New York, the kids would go to a park, and I would go inside and cut the Kane Dewey promo, the Uncle Willie promo. Like, I would go and cut those promos and come back out as a completely normal, happy dad. The problem I was encountering is that I couldn't get out from underneath that dark cloud. That the promos I was cutting were creating what felt like a cloud over me emotionally that I could not get away from. And they were dragging me down. And I couldn't figure out why I used to be the guy who could go in and do these state-of-the-art promos, boom, and come out and be a good dad and go out and play on the swings with the kids. And now I just feel alone and down. And the more I put into my promos, the more real they felt.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, we're having this experience with Moxley where he doesn't know when I'm working and when I'm not. So he mentioned my kids, and it really bothered me because what he's saying feels like it could be factual.
Yes.
Like at this point, I'm learning more about head injuries. I'm seeing the futures that some of these guys had who did less than I did, you know, who didn't take the type of punishment that I did. Like, the writing is on the wall and it looks pretty fucking scary. You know, I only dropped that F-bomb, but I'm worried for my future as a dad, as a husband, as a, you know, cognizant human being. And when he brings up the stuff about the kids, it really bothers me. And so I asked Dusty if he could help me talk to him. And Dusty walks over. Moxley's sitting, he's hanging out like with one arm around, you know, he's inside the ring barricade. He's either inside or he's in the front row of the seats, you know, where people are going over their stuff and working on moves. And I said, "Hey, John, can I talk to you for a second?" And he looks panicked and he starts like, almost like crawl stroking over the seats. So he's like walking but crawling and this, and then he gets into a clearing almost like he's looking, and it was weird. And so I called out to him. I said, "John, just do me a favor. I don't get to talk to him face to face. I'm talking to him about 15 feet away." I said, "Just do me a favor. Don't mention my kids anymore." And he nods his head like that. Now, this is where he covers this exactly the way that I remember it in his book, which is a great book and an incredibly honest book. And if we can find the one chapter where he talks about a man, it's a great, I don't know if it's the standout chapter. Not that a lot of them, you know, the one about making the perfect sandwich is a good chapter, but he's got a great chapter about the state of the nation, more to speak, in pro wrestling. And how wrestling doesn't belong to WWE, it doesn't belong to Vince McMahon, it belongs to all of us. It really should be required reading. So John has this.
He writes this. "It gets weirder. We go to London for TVs, and I have a shitty, cheap phone that doesn't work in Europe, so I'm basically out of communication for a few days. In my mind, since we were quote-unquote working the boys, when Mick said, 'Don't talk about my family,' in front of those who I thought we were working, that was a signal to me that talking about his family was exactly what he wanted me to do. At the TV hotel in London, I go to the business center, get on the computer, and tweet more shit about his family because I think that's what I'm supposed to do. Mick had been texting me that while this angle was going great, he actually did not want me to make mention of his family. In Europe, with my cheap phone, I was not receiving these texts and happily went on to do exactly what Mick had just asked me not to do. Mick did not appreciate this. We didn't know each other well, and he just figured I was an asshole. He was pretty upset with me and almost pulled the plug on the whole thing. When I returned to the U.S. soil, my phone lit up with messages, among them several long texts from Mick asking me what the fuck my problem was. I was mortified. I would have never said anything intentionally disrespectful or out of the line with our story if it not was exactly what I thought he wanted me to do. I cursed my shitty phone for blowing the biggest opportunity of my life. I profusely apologized, explained it was a misunderstanding, and we smoothed it over quickly. But there must be a lesson to be learned here about trying so hard to work other people that you end up not knowing what's real and what's not. Crisis averted. We were back on.
Oh, man, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
He was not getting the messages. I'm going to my wife and I'm going, I just told him not to mention my family. and he's piling it on.
Yes.
It was the craziest thing. And oh man, like I said, I was under this cloud anyway. But when we do decide to do business,
Yes.
I feel like we've got something to go on.
Yeah.
What I had proposed, I remember Punk really liked it. And I said something. I said, Phil, do you imagine, at that time, 10 years ago, this was 2012.
Yes.
So I was 47. I said, do you imagine yourself making a wrestling comeback at 47? He said, absolutely not. I said, neither did I.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not what I thought I would be doing. And so I had proposed this idea for leading up to SummerSlam, which is where we wanted to go. And I don't know if I actually got to the point of proposing it for reasons we'll find out very shortly. But I had this idea that I was going to borrow a page from Rocky III, where Rocky overdoes the grandiosity of his training. Remember, he got Paulie selling gimmicks, you know, and they got a horn section doing the music. Of
course.
And Burgess Meredith goes, change your tune, right? He wants it the old-fashioned way. So I want to team up with Zack Ryder, Long Island's own, Long Island Ice Z.
Yes.
I want Twisted Sister to be playing on the stage when they come back, and I wanted Moxley to have a mystery partner. So when I go out there with Ice Z, we're on Long Island. It's perfect. It's a great return. First of all, Moxley comes out and he kicks over the drum set. You know, I mean, whether or not I could take D into taking one for the team, I don't know. But I want him to basically destroy the whole, the grandiosity of the Foley return and then announce his tag team partner, who is Punk. And Punk is still a huge babyface, but he could explain. Was he a babyface?
Yes.
Yeah, he was. And then he could explain that. What happened to you, man? What happened to you? And that's where I get the Johnny Cash Hurt song, what have I become? And thinking back to who I used to be and who I have become, and now I have this one last chance to assert myself. And I know I can't have the type of matches that I think I can, but I've put together structurally in my mind a bunch of ideas from borrowing from the very first Memphis main event entrance I ever saw. I go in there for my first Mid-South Coliseum show on Monday night, summer of 1988. It's Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant and Jerry Lawler against, I can't remember the opponents, but a couple of those well-known Memphis names. And Jimmy comes out on stage and he's boogieing and woogieing, and all of a sudden Jimmy's attacking the heels from behind. It was a fake Jimmy Valiant. It was underneath talent. Baxter was his last name. Wow, that's good. That's really good. And so I wanted an idea, I don't know if it was a stipulation or an idea, where yes, Mick Foley is wrestling, but we don't know which character it's going to be. So if you are going to present a character to battle Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose at that time, you're probably not going to go with Dude Love.
No.
But Dude would be who we see. Oh, he's going to be duding up and everything, brother. There's a shirt, hottest seller on the internet. Hashtag he's duding up.
Duding up.
Duding up. And so you'd get kind of like a look of, Phil and Moxley be looking at each other, and then I would have gotten approval from The Undertaker to come up from underneath the ring as old, scary, boiler room dwelling Mankind. And now we could work this type. This would be, I think I'm segueing to what I saw in mind for our SummerSlam match. I don't know how that match would have gone, but it would have led to SummerSlam. And it was for SummerSlam that I had all these different ideas going on, including that elbow off the TV truck that I always wanted to do.
You wanted to do it there.
I wanted it set up so that I could actually come off the TV truck, which would have been set up in catering, so that I could actively be leaping over people who were dining to land on something. And my idea was always to have it be the hood of a car so you could finagle the shock, so and also just that dramatic low angle camera shot, so it would feel like I was sailing into your living room, like I had this match thought of, that the same hole that I came out of would prove to be my undoing when there's a reversal into the corner, and I end up stepping into the hole or disappearing down the hole and coming up with an injured left knee. So I had this match in mind. We have put together we put aside the misunderstanding. I'm looking for Moxley to really rock my world as far as him and Punk getting me back in that frame of mind that I need to have to get in. And I'm looking at a realistic 3-star match that could encompass a couple of great moments.
Some great storytelling.
So that even if we can't produce the bell-to-bell classic, we can create a few moments within that storyline that will stick with people. So I am 100% in on SummerSlam 2000.
Moxley wrote this. This is great. Crisis averted, we were back on. Dean Ambrose versus Mick Foley on a collision course for some kind of gimmick match, like a cage or something at SummerSlam. Sure, it would be a star-making performance. I figured I'd be cutting promos and talking mad shit to the top guys on Raw and main event segments in no time. All I had to do was go get over. Give me a mic and get out of the way. I'll be the top heel by the end of the year, I figured. Then I got the call from Hunter, and it all went up in flames. They couldn't get Mick medically cleared. That was it. He was done. It was over. I was crushed. I don't know the details of Mick's evaluation, but I believe it was due to the history he had with concussions. Mick had tried. He suggested to the doctor we could work an entire match around his leg and play it as safe as possible. 'Twas not to be. I believe that feud would go down as one of the all-time what could have been things, but looking at it now, I see differently than I did then. At the time, I assumed it would be Mick and I coming up with our own angle and cutting our own interviews and crafting our own stories. What happened?
Whew. I went to Pittsburgh, PA to take the impact test. Impact test is meant to give you a baseline that can be judged against after a head injury. So your baseline is supposed to be you at your best, and then they will compare that to where you registered after a head injury. And yet, while I'm taking the baseline, I'm aware that it's not going well. My short-term memory is almost non-existent. And so I realize they come back and they ask you to recall words that you've used, and I didn't know any of them. So I know enough about these tests to know, and it resonates with me that I have done far worse damage to my head than I even realized. So
you didn't know until that moment?
No. I mean,
you put your head in the sand.
He asked me, that was where he said, how do you feel? He specifically asked me about being on a computer. And I was like, I get really bad headaches. And that's why my rain stuff had curtailed greatly. And also I no longer felt like I was equipped to handle these tough situations like I had been. Like my decline had been pretty rapid. And so what I did is, independent of WWE, I booked another appointment with a neurologist, Dr. Robert Cantu out of Massachusetts, one of the top neurologists in the country. Chris Nowinski had recommended him. And so same situation with Dr. Cantu. I should let you know that one of the biggest difficulties I had was in multitasking.
Right.
Everything felt overwhelming. So I was always the guy paying my bills every month on time, and now I'm the guy just sweeping them to the side. I can't deal with this right now. And I come to find out that Mike Webster, the great Pittsburgh Steelers center, upon whom the beginning of the Will Smith movie Concussion is centered, that was the first sign that he was struggling as a guy who'd always paid his bills, always paid his taxes, was now years behind in his taxes, wasn't paying his bills. So I realize this is uncharted territory for me.
Yeah.
I meet with Dr. Cantu 1 week. I come back 2 weeks later, and he looks me in the eye and he says, "You should never wrestle again." And I look him in the eye and I said, "I can work an entire match around my left knee." And I'm so proud of that. It's almost like if I can't have "Here lies Mr. In Your House, no one came through bigger when it mattered less" on my epitaph, then I want "I can work an entire match around my left knee," because it showed me that, doggone it, I was still one of the boys, sure that he had one last match. And Dr. Cantu looked at me and he said, "Mr. Foley, when we met 2 weeks ago, you struck me as a bright young man." It was his word, bright, young. He goes, "Since then, I've been reading about you. You have a lot going on for you." And he looked me like really dead in the eye. He said, "If you want to get another neurologist to clear you, that's your business. But I'm telling you, you should never wrestle again." And what that did, it was essentially a manager throwing in the towel. It was somebody taking the bat out of my hand. And I felt this enormous sense of relief. I really did. The truth is, I had not enjoyed the comeback matches, even the ones that went really well. So nervous. Like, there should be nerves and counterbalanced by the enjoyment and the rush, but it was almost all nerves and just a sense of relief when those matches were over. So I had not been enjoying them like I should have, even though some of them were really good. And the first person I called was Edge, because I knew Edge, and clearly things have changed. Edge is back in the ring.
He had just gone through it.
Yeah, he'd just gone through it, and we had a long talk while I was driving, and I was at peace with it. I really was, and I'm so glad he had that talk with me.
Can you share what he said?
Well, what he said was exactly what he said. If you feel like you can get another neurologist to clear you, it was the same determination, was the same thing that the
his doctor said the same to him.
Yes, it was the same. And then, so here's what happens. Literally a day, maybe two after I talked to Dr. Cantu, I get a call from, it's not after the second meeting. It's a day or two after the first meeting. I get a call from John Laurinaitis who says, "Mick, it's Johnny. There's an issue with your impact test." So I did go back to that doctor as well, who also told me I should never wrestle again. And so I'm thinking, that's it. It's not a knee. It's not you've seen I walk around better than I used to because I had my hip replaced, my knee replaced. There's no brain replacements. Like, this is not something I wanted to toy around with. I've been really fearful because I'd seen the deterioration. And that's why going out on the road and doing those one-man shows, before I really started getting a good audience, once in a while I go to the UK and do really well, but at that point people are still like, "Well, what does he do? Does he tell jokes?" Like,
well, because it was marketed once upon a time as like the extreme comedy tour.
Extreme comedy, and which was not what I was doing. And even when it was marketed as stand-up,
that's kind of not it either.
Not it either. Now it's a storytelling show. If comedians want to call it comedy because storytelling, that's good. But it's so difficult when you say, "You want to hear Mick Foley do stand-up comedy?" No. Would you like to hear him tell funny stories throughout his career? Yeah. So you have to change the perspective.
Yeah. But extreme comedy sounds like you're jackass. You're going to be stapling your sack to stuff. And
a lot of what I do some of that at home.
Cactus sack. Yeah, we know. We got the tapes.
When I'm bored, I just take out the stapler that I got from Nick Gage and just...
Bang, bang.
Just
pizza cutter. We don't have to go into all of it. So, listen.
By the way, may I tell you that Nick Gage did a cameo video for my children for Christmas Day, and it was magical. I told him, "Nick, don't." Are
they members of the gang?
No, they're not officially. Don't ease up on the F-bombs because it's my kids. And I will go through the archive so that magically we can see photos of my children dressed as Nick Gage.
I don't mean to brag, but I'm a card-carrying member of the MDK gang.
Are you really?
All fucking day.
Can I be?
I can get you in.
Honorary?
Yeah, I can get you in.
Can I show it like when I get stopped for traffic?
You get a black metal card. This is real. I'm not kidding. I'll make sure we make that happen. I know people.
You know, science tells us the best way to achieve and maintain consistent deep sleep is by lowering our core body temperature, where temperature-controlled sleep repairs our muscles after a hard day's work. And it improves cognitive function so you can always start your day feeling sharp and alert. Well, Sleep Me is the new home for Chili Sleep. They're still bringing you the same great sleep that Chili Sleep offered, but now under a new name. Sleep Me offers the coldest and most comfortable sleep systems available. They create the environment that meets your body's natural need for lower core temperatures. That's going to help promote deeper, more restorative sleep. It's really worked for me. I've had the Ooler for a long, long time now, and I'm sleeping better than ever. In fact, I was worn out from my trip to Mexico this past weekend. When I came home, I slept 10 hours and 45 minutes. The Ooler made it happen. They also make a Cube and a Doc Pro sleep system. Either way, all three are water-based, temperature-controlled mattress toppers that fit over your existing mattress to provide you your ideal sleep temperature. Think of it as like a smart thermostat for your bed. My wife and I like to sleep at different temperatures. She likes to sleep a little warmer. I like to sleep a little colder. We can do that in the same doggone bed. Don't think of this as a water bed. There's no water in your bed, but water does have these amazing thermal properties. They can heat that water up or cool that water down, depending on what temperature you want. And you can even control it with an app on your phone. My wife even schedules her sleep. Think about that. She climbs into a warm bed. It warms her up, right? But then she doesn't want to get all hot and sweaty, so it cools her off so she can get that deep sleep. But then it warms her up to wake her up, and it's all automatic. You see, these mattress pads keep your bed at the perfect temperature for deep, cold sleep. Chili Sleep and now Sleep Me is designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and give you the confidence and energy to power through your day. Oh, and how about this new Doc Pro sleep system? It has two times more cold power than the other models. It's whisper quiet. And it has a tubeless mattress pad design that allows for 5 times more cooling contact. What are you waiting for, y'all? Check it out. I love it. You will too. Head over right now to sleep.me/Foley to learn more and save 25% off the new purchase of any new Doc Pro, Cube, or Ooler sleep system. Now, this offer is available exclusively for Mick Foley listeners and only for a limited time. That's sleep, sleep.me/Foley to take advantage of our exclusive discounts and wake up feeling refreshed every day. Sleep.me/Foley.
Look, hey, I'm going to look at the camera. This is a heavier show than I think we've done.
Yeah.
But man, those concussions are no joke. You see, I honestly think I'm doing better than I was when Beyond the Mat was.
Really, mentally?
I do. I think if you watch the movie, even when I'm not calling Barry post cell, I sensed that I was starting to slur my words a little bit, and I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders in a way that I was not 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. Yeah.
Do you
No, I can't remember a written promo.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why if I do get a call for TV, I'm more likely to say no, because I thought in 2012, the year we're covering, that I make a difference.
Yeah.
And I thought, honestly, I was one of the few returning guys who could make a difference or who wanted to make a difference, because that was my primary goal. If you're going to bring me back, I want to help out a storyline. I don't want to just get the pop. I don't want to just promote something I have coming up. I want to make a difference. And now I'm going to tell them, I cannot remember a storyline. And I don't want to just be a hanger-on in the back on, old school day. But as far as remembering, as far as long-term memory, I think it's as strong as it's ever been. And I think from a speech perspective, burping, I didn't burp like this in 99.
No,
yeah.
Black Adam's helping you get back to normal. Hey, so let's talk about the rest of 2012.
Okay.
It's got to be a little disappointing because you did have this big idea that was easy for you to get excited about, and then you wind up doing like Blast from the Past SmackDown where you put the Socko on Jimmy Hart, and you're going to be rocking the suit and dropping some LBs and making some matches and doing a little stuff with Vicky Guerrero, and it feels like there's parts of the year where, for lack of a better word, you're just kind of going through the motions.
Going through the motions. And it was also obvious to me that the company did not seem comfortable with me representing them as an ambassador, in that I was not called on to do very much. And when I was, they would go to seemingly great lengths to make it look like I wasn't there. So WrestleMania party with the mayor of New Orleans, they show every one of the ambassadors in their commercial except me. And I knew, well, I just, I did know that Vince wasn't crazy about the way I dressed or the way I looked. And also, he is a firm believer in the magic of wrestling.
Yes.
And taking people's minds off their problems.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put one of the old guys back on TV and he's clearly having a lot of trouble getting around,
that's not good.
That takes away from the magic. So fast forwarding a couple of years, I called Vince, and we hadn't talked in a long time, and Kevin said I should give him a call. And I said, Vince, nobody's ever told me this, but I have to feel that one of the reasons I'm so rarely on TV is because it's difficult to watch me get around. He didn't say no, he didn't say yes. And I said, I just want you to know I'm down 25 pounds with the goal of being down 80 by the holidays. And as soon as I heard him say, this was January, I think 2016, and he said, I'm going to hold you to that. And as soon as I heard him say, I'm going to hold you to that, I felt like I could do it because I wanted to show him I could do it. And unfortunately, I don't have somebody that I want to show that to now, which is not an excuse. Yeah, it's kind of an excuse. But it was
motivation.
It was a motivating factor for me there. But very rarely was I on TV. They would have me go and do the pre and post shows once in a while.
Well, you did some fun stuff here with Heyman and Punk in September.
Yeah.
And, this is when they started to try to turn Punk heel a little bit.
Right.
And they've aligned him with Paul Heyman. And, of course, he's the devil.
Right.
And there's some really fun back and forth. You're a strong promo. Punk's a strong promo. Heyman's a strong promo. Was that fun for you? Some of the other stuff felt like it was going through the motions.
It was a lot of fun. And so I'm kind of contradicting myself by saying I couldn't remember stuff, but yet I was doing these really good promos with Paul and Phil. But that's partially because they were help lifting me up and partially putting me in an atmosphere where I didn't have to recall, I had to feel. So I had the bullet points, and I was playing off their energy, and I was coming out with some of the stuff, to me, that was, some of the best stuff I'd done in years, to the point where when John Cena went down with an injury and Ryback was brought in to wrestle, brother, if I hadn't failed that impact test, I could have slid right into that role. And I don't think that's out of line.
No.
I think that would have been a perfect spot. Now what happens is,
they did a decent number on that too. Ryback and Punk and Hell in a Cell. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming, but it got some attention.
It did, and Ryback, his credit, Ryback was over for a while.
He was on a roll.
He was on a roll as a take no prisoners babyface.
Feed me more. The whole crowd was chanting. They loved it.
They really did. Now he didn't have another gear.
Yeah,
and then it remains to be seen. I thought the big bully who was a coward at heart, I thought that may have had legs, and they cut it before.
Are you surprised he's not doing anything in wrestling? I kind of thought for sure by now.
I mean, I just had this talk with my kids. I said, there's some people who make it a point to go back, if not reinvent themselves, then to improve themselves. It's almost like the Drew McIntyre blueprint. Yes, I am going to do some shows where I take advantage of, the name I had, but I am going to improve myself, come back as a better Drew McIntyre. He reached out to me. I don't know if I've told this story, and we've already praised Sheamus, and but I think this deserves to be said, that he sent me a text, probably a direct message on Twitter. He goes, I know we don't know each other that well, but your opinion means a lot to me. I'm trying something new. I just did this. I'm trying. I don't know if he used the word reinvent. And I watched his comeback to Insane Championship Wrestling, ICW, and the first thing I did was text Hunter, who I don't text too often, and I said, you need to take a look at Drew McIntyre. I said, I know he just left, but it's almost like he's a different human being. And that's the plan. And that, I think, shows how much someone really loves wrestling. And I mean, I have no problem with a guy doing supplements, showing up, a couple autograph signings, but you want to be that guy, Cody Rhodes, who vows to return because he didn't have the AEW thing waiting for him.
Right.
He went a couple of years where he was in ROH. He was doing the...
he did all the indies.
Did all the indies. And when I saw him outside in the summer, an outdoor minor league baseball show, wrestling show at a minor league stadium, and it's sweltering heat, and he's wearing that three-piece suit, and I said, is that what you wear all the time? He goes, every time.
Yep.
He had a way that he wanted people to see him.
Yep.
He had that list of people that he wanted to wrestle, and he went in and became a bigger star without WWE than he had been there. And so there are those guys who want to excel, want to improve, and then other guys who maybe just don't love it. Maybe they've fallen out of love with it because of the nature of the business.
Do you think Ryback's fallen out of love? You know, I was under the impression he had an injury and he was rehabbing, because if you see him on social, it looks like he's gotten himself into better shape, maybe overcome a lot of injuries. I don't know if it's a timing thing or if it's a personality thing or if he's not interested. But, man, what a great look. And clearly, I mean, I know people are going to listen to this who are anti-Ryback.
Oh, sure.
But go watch the 2012 stuff.
He was over.
Dude was over.
Brother, he was over.
Yeah.
He was over.
It just feels like a guy with that look and that experience, man, he should be doing something. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe he's picking his spots. I don't know. But
well, so this time period, again, that's enough Ryback praising. So we don't go vote. At this time where I think, that would have been great. I could have jumped right into that role. Foley returns to Hell in a Cell. It's a storyline that makes sense. And so I'm getting ready to take Noel and Huey up to Santa's Village for their spooktacular October weekend. And I think this coincides with the Superstorm Sandy. I believe it does. Because we end up driving up out of the path of the storm and then flying to Atlanta, where I was doing something with the pay-per-view. And what happens is the night before we're supposed to leave, I packed up the Foley, the red Foley minivan, the Chevy Venture. I packed it up with boxes to take to a local shelter. And I've got blankets and clothes and sleeping bags and all those things. And I'm at a stop sign, and all of a sudden I get hit from behind. And I kid you not, this is right up there with I can work an entire match around my left knee. As my head is going forward into the steering wheel, it wasn't enough impact to initiate the thing, but enough to whiplash me. As my head is going forward, my thought is, I should have done the match with Punk, because I know I'm going to have a concussion. And I did. And I was so angry when I got out of there. The woman telling me, it turns out she was on the phone with her husband, who was a police officer. They're texting. And she hits me and tried to say she tapped me. I said, that's not a tap. Like, that's not a tap. And I was just kind of angry because I knew that these concussions cost me weeks of being at my best. And I was supposed to go to a fundraiser that night in New York City. Instead, I gathered the kids and I said, let's just go. Let's just go to the White Mountains, which is about a 7-hour drive. Made it without even stopping. Had all the energy in the world. I was on a cloud. And it's that fight or flight reflex. It's that boost of adrenaline. And then when I crashed, I crashed. And I called Chris Nowinski and I asked him, I said, is it normal to get this incredible rush of energy? And that's where he told me about the fight or flight. And he goes, you're probably going to crash. And sure enough, I did. But that's where I was at that time, that when my head was going forward and bouncing off the steering wheel, my first thought was, I should have done that match with Punk, because if I'm going to get a concussion,
might as well get paid for it.
Might as well get paid for it.
Yeah. Well, the fun with Punk continues. Of course, there's a screwy finish, the whole Brad Maddox finish, and that effectively is the end of Ryback's
Brad
push.
Maddox, underrated authority figure?
Yeah, I mean, listen.
No, absolutely not.
I did think he was so young.
Yeah.
Man, that guy, he's going to be able to do something. And another one of those guys just poof into the ether, gone.
Yeah.
we start to set up a Survivor Series match. The original idea is supposed to be Team Punk versus Team Foley. Team Punk would be Punk, Alberto Del Rio, The Miz, Damian Sandow, and Cody Rhodes. Team Foley would be Ryback, Randy Orton, Kofi Kingston, Kane, and Daniel Bryan. And then eventually it starts to feel like that's going to change. I guess the authority decides that Team Punk versus Team Foley in a traditional Survivor Series elimination match might not do well on pay-per-view. Do you remember hearing about this?
I do. And I was supposed to be at TV. I end up getting a call from Mark Carano saying, you're needed for TV. And I said, I'm sitting on a plane going to South Korea.
Yeah.
He says, well, we need you to get off. I said, I'm doing a show for our troops. Like, unpaid. This is a WWE show because I'm also doing a writers convention in Singapore, and I had asked WWE years earlier. Roddy and I had gone together and said, we came up with this plan. We will go, we will travel for free on a cargo plane to perform and do these storytelling shows for our troops. And I don't know why it didn't happen. It feels like something I want to go back and approach them about. But
Right.
So the only 2 times they took me up on it was when it coincided with trips I was already taking. So I got to do a show for the troops in South Korea. I got to do in Abu Dhabi as well. But I said, Mark, I'm going to do a show for the troops. Like, I can't do it. So I did miss one. But I do remember being asked about it. And I don't know if it would have done well or not. I am of the belief that no traditional Survivor Series match as a main event is going to do well. I think that's a secondary match.
It is.
But I think you need either a really well promoted singles main event, whether it's male or female. At that time it would have been male because we didn't have the Revolution yet. But I would just wonder the wisdom of having that match as a main event anyway.
November 11th, November 12th, Columbus. This is that Lawler segment. Punk's going to come out, interrupting Lawler, start ripping on him. And then Paul Heyman starts coughing and collapses, doing a fake heart attack. Punk is mockingly asking someone for help, and then he tells Lawler, try not to croak before the pay-per-view. What do you think of that, given what Lawler had just been through?
How much earlier had he been through it?
The year prior.
Year prior?
You say it's fair?
Yeah, especially if Jerry's okay with it, which
Yeah.
I think he was. Yeah, I think it's fair.
So we're starting to get towards Survivor Series. They announced the voting results because we're going to try to see, who the fans want to see. They announced the voting results of who would be on Team Foley at Survivor Series and who would team with Kane. Miz gets 60%, Ryder gets 34%, Morella gets 6%. Eventually, of course, in the main event, Cena is going to beat Punk in a non-title match. So the streak continues, but you've got this backstage bit here where there's Team Foley in turmoil. Are you having fun with this Team Ziggler versus Team Foley? As it winds up, Team Foley is Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan, Kane, Randy Orton, and The Miz. And Team Ziggler is Ziggler, Alberto Del Rio, Damian Sandow, David Otunga, and Wade Barrett. Is this going through the motions for you, or is this fun? Team Foley at Survivor Series. You get to use the Mr. Sacco, but
I'm recalling a interview with Bob Costas where he was talking with who was the guy who played Curly in the City Slickers movie.
Yeah.
A great heel.
I don't recall, but I know who you're talking about.
Legend of Curly's Gold. Jack Palance.
Yes.
So Bob Costas is recalling a interview, the most painful interview he ever did, where he was talking about Jack Palance and Shane. He's the embodiment of evil. What was going through your mind? And he says, Jack Palance goes, to tell you the truth, I don't remember a damn thing about it.
So that's you in this Survivor Series.
Yeah, you see Some of the memories I have are so vivid, but that's because our brain can only handle and recall the things that
really
either
great
went really well
or the
or
really bad.
poor. So this is an indication that it was
There. Vanilla.
It was okay. So I don't have any recollection whatsoever.
Hey guys, listen up. I know these days when you watch the news, it feels like it's one hit after another and it's all bad news for the economy. Well, let me give you some good news. It's not all that bad when it comes to real estate. Let me explain. You see, a year ago, man, real estate was hot. Everybody and their brother was trying to go out and buy another house. What did that mean? It was so competitive that a lot of folks got discouraged. So let me ask you, have you thought about buying a house in the last couple of years, but maybe just couldn't win a bid? I used to hear that all the time. Well, now is the time to buy. Yes, interest rates have creeped up a little bit, but what that's created is an opportunity for you. A year ago, it wasn't uncommon for there to be more than a dozen offers on a home, many of which were over list. That is not the case today. So if you got discouraged once before about trying to buy a new house, now's the time to take another look. Now, yes, interest rates have creeped up a little bit, but you're not going to overpay for the home. But here's what you will do. You'll stop throwing your money away on rent, and now you'll get a greater tax deduction. That's right. You see, at the end of the year, you're going to get a statement from your mortgage company that shows how much interest you paid, and you get to write all of that interest off. That means you could get a huge tax deduction. You never get that as a renter. Not only that, homes are still going up in value. Don't believe the hype. All of the economists believe long-term real estate always works out. Let me give you an example. Maybe way back when, in the housing collapse of 2008, you bought in 2007 and maybe overpaid. Buddy, if you hung in there, that house is worth a whole heck of a lot more now. If you've played in the stock market, you know what I'm talking about. You only lose money when you throw in the towel. Real estate long-term always performs well. So here's my advice to you. Date the rate, marry the house. Find the house that you and your family love long-term, because here's what's not long-term: these higher rates. I've yet to see a single economist who doesn't agree with me that rates are going to return. So doesn't it make sense to get the house you want right now, and then when rates improve, man, just get a lower monthly payment? In the meantime, you'll enjoy a greater tax deduction, and that property is going to continue to appreciate, meaning you're building equity and wealth for yourself. Not only that, how about this? We're going to save you some cash at buywithconrad.com. We're going to give you the peace of mind of a 7-year guarantee. When rates improve over the next 7 years, not if, but when, that's my prediction, we'll refinance you again with no new origination points. Think about that. That could save you thousands of dollars and give you the peace of mind of knowing that you got the right house for your family right now. And then when the rates improve, man, get a lower monthly payment. Now, you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but you do need to hurry to buywithconrad.com. That's the first step. You tell us how much you want to put down and what you want your monthly payment to be. We get you approved, and then you go shopping just like a cash buyer at buywithconrad.com. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Seriously, if you've thought about buying a house over the last couple of years, but you got discouraged, now's the time to take another look. Let me run the numbers for you right now. You'll be glad you did at buywithconrad.com.
WOOOOO Wings, a virtual restaurant concept from the man himself, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Enjoy the legendary flavors and world championship wings by ordering with your Uber Eats or Postmates app. WOOOOO Wings is now open in Nashville, San Antonio, Jacksonville, Florida, as well as Huntsville and Tuscaloosa in Alabama, with many more locations coming soon. Try the only chicken wings worthy of carrying the name of the 16-time world heavyweight champion. Tell him, Nate.
Wings! Legendary flavors, world championship wings! Woo! Woo wings! Yeah! Woo woo!
Here we are. We're finally here. One of your favorite moments. Foley portrays Santa Claus on the December 24th pre-taped edition of Monday Night Raw. Foley as Santa is run over by Alberto Del Rio. Because again, if you can't get cleared to wrestle a match, why don't we just hit that dude with a car? He manages to recover later in the night and helps Cena defeat Del Rio in a Miracle on 34th Street match.
Street fight match.
This is interesting, to say the least. I got to hear the story. Of course, you had been in a real car
By the tone of your voice, interesting, and by my laughing, I'm guessing that the two of us are not going to agree on the joy it created.
I loved it.
Okay.
But I'm just curious if this is a guy who he's almost on the do not touch
Yeah.
list. We're not maybe using that phrase yet. But then somehow we're going to greenlight creative for a stunt.
Reason being, I had a beautiful new Santa suit made for me by the fine people in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
Planet Santa people. Made it handmade. There's none other like it. It cost $3,500 to create. I wore it in the filming of I Am Santa Claus, and I basically did not want Tyrus wearing my suit to take that hit. You know, like that's gonna, it's gonna be sweating in my suit. Plus, he's got gigantic feet, and I had brought 2 left feet. I brought 2 left foot Santa boots, neither one of which is gonna fit Tyrus, who was known at the time as
Funkasaurus.
yeah, Funkasaurus, yeah, Brodus Clay. And so when Hunter was said, we need to find somebody who can take that, and I was like, I can do that. So I talked Hunter into saying that I was just fine with being run over by a car. The truth is, I'm going to walk into a parked car,
Right.
and through miracle of sound effects, which, brother, when it came to life, when it showed, it looked like I was run over by a car.
It looked legit. Ask the lady who tapped you in the real car. Right? Here's that same guy a few months later signing up to get ran
Signing
over.
up to get run over. And to my credit, I did a lot of damage to that car. I mean, dented it big time. If you can walk into a parked car, I did it about as well as you could, and used the same philosophy that used to propel me over those ring steps when I was shot in. It's like, I need to hit this when I'm walking, but I'm going to hit it as solidly as I can in the upper thigh so that it will propel me over the roof. And I did considerable damage to that BMW. You could feel the crowd groan when they saw me walk into a parked car, but yet then on TV. But even in a live situation, I walk in, and even though I take the nice tumble, you can feel the groan until a Christmas tree tips over on top of me, does lacerate me just slightly. I wasn't busted open, not wearing a crimson mask by any account. But I think the crowd all simultaneously realized this is the one place in the world where you can see Santa run over by a vehicle, and that's where they got into it, and they started chanting, "You killed Santa." And this is where Del Rio was very good, but Ricardo was out of this world.
Yeah.
To this day, I maintain there is an empty spot on his mantle where an Emmy Award should be. I believe they wanted Del Rio to play it like he was upset about the damage to his car, but he didn't, which I think worked because Del Rio was concerned. He just ran over a human or mythical. It was still he ran over somebody.
Yeah.
And Ricardo was just beside himself to the point where he was almost dry heaving. He was just mourning the loss of Santa to the point where when he introduces Del Rio, he's supposed to say Alberto Del Rio, and instead he just grabs the mic and goes, Santa. Just great. And I don't usually remember other people's promos word for word. It's very unusual for me to remember my own promo word for word. But I'm sitting in the trainer's office, and I'm wondering what I've just done because I take my Santa stuff seriously. And I'll give you, once we talk about this, I'll tell you how I got the gig, which I think is a fun and interesting story. But I'm thinking, I didn't get into this to like hurt children,
right,
make them cry or fear the loss of Santa. You know, it was just that I had this opportunity to do this thing on Raw, and I couldn't turn it down. And then I hear Booker's promo. And he's got the whole locker room gathered around him. He goes, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Santa's down, and it don't look good. But before Santa lost consciousness, he said his last words to me were, and the last words were not, make sure the toys get delivered, don't disappoint the children of the world. His last words to me were, Alberto Del Rio will be in a fight tonight. A Miracle on 34th Street fight match. And now this is where Del Rio comes up and he goes, like, I did not mean to hit Santa Claus, but technically everyone knows where I drive my cars, so this was not my fault. And then Cena comes in. I think he overacted to assure the children of the world that they should not take this seriously. And he goes, let's do it. He goes, St. Nicholas is a saint, which is a case of overstating the obvious, right? And then he pumps a forearm that Popeye the Sailor Man would have been envious of. And he goes, for Santa. And the crowd starts chanting, the locker room starts chanting Santa. And I think to myself, it's going to be okay. Going to be okay. And then Matt Stryker comes in and he reports the sad news that Santa has passed. And then we hear the heart monitor, not just beeping, but playing jingle bells. And Santa comes roaring back to life. Roaring.
Spirit of 76. You said in there, not a lot of human. I was really proud of the fact that I could do so much damage to a parked car. And I wondered to myself, how would one put that skill set on a resume? Like, where else would that unique skill be able to be monetized except for professional wrestling? One of a kind. So how did you get this gig?
The gig is, for those who haven't seen I Am Santa Claus, it's a great Christmas movie, and there's a lot of joy in it. Part of the reason there's joy is because Tommy Avalone, the director, he makes us care about the 5 gentlemen he follows throughout the year, and they do go through trials and tribulations, all of them waiting until that moment where they get to be that guy again. It really, it's not that different from what we do in wrestling. It's a lot, but there's similarities in that you live for those moments. So I think that's one of the things the movie does. It says it's not something someone resorts to, like they're on their last, the shows that I love, like the 1960 version of Twilight Zone with Art Carney as a down on his luck department store Santa, but he looks ridiculous.
Right.
As much as I love Elf, there's no way you're going to have a Santa who smells like beef and cheese showing up at a high-end department store, and you're not going to have a drunk Santa leading the parade for Kohl's, a.k.a. Macy's. These are going to be the top of you would have Kohl's is the store in Elf is akin to Macy's. You're going to have the top guys in the business doing that. The guy who leads the Macy's parade is almost like the grand poobah of Santas. The other guys are almost going to genuflect to him. But other than that, I just lost my train of thought here. Okay, I know what it is. Tommy's movie, the last 30 minutes especially, show the joy that these people bring, and it's really uplifting. So once or twice a year, I'll just watch the last 32 minutes, including the late night visit on Christmas Eve from the real Santa to my son, which is nothing short of magical. And in filming that movie, like December 4th, 5th, or 6th, somewhere around there, I get to be in Santa's chair at Santa's Village with Huey as my elf. And it's 2 of the best hours of my life. It's just, the first time I took a look at that child and I see this magic of Christmas reflected in his eyes, I get this feeling of, I'm going to need to do this more. I'm going to have to do this a lot more. And in some ways it allows me to have those amazing moments without wrestling. And now, to my wife's credit, she was an hour and a half late checking out. I'm sitting in my car. I have told her it's imperative to get an early start so we're not driving through the mountains at dusk, which is when the moose come out, So now I'm fearing for our lives. But a call to my wife telling her hurry up is futile. So I take the time to send Stephanie McMahon a text message. I realize I'm just going to put this out there once. I'm not going to bother people. I'm going to dangle it out there and see what happens. And I send Stephanie a message, and it says, ho, 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 from Jolly. St. Mick. And she responds back and goes, "Is this you? You look incredible." And I said, "Hey, would you like me to be on the Tribute for the Troops show?" That's where it started.
Wow.
It was just one text to Stephanie. And next thing I know, I go from visiting with 30 children at Santa's Village over the course of 2 hours to being in front of thousands of people. And that's another story for another day, how I learned the lesson about it not being the number of people, making the most significant impression on somebody, creating a special moment for one or two people as opposed to being out there waving in front of thousands. But that's another story for another day.
Well, today was the story of your return to WWE and your experience in 11 and 12. Before we go to the most fun part of our show, which is definitely not a plug, where we have a little fun on Cameo, I feel like we should acknowledge that something pretty major happened to a friend of ours. Unfortunately, Kevin Nash lost his son a week ago. And it's an unimaginable. I mean, you've talked so lovingly about how important, how special your kids are, and what a big part and the best part of your life they are. And obviously, he had a great relationship with his son, and he passed away at just 26 years old. I don't really have the words, but you're the wordsmith of our little outfit, so I just wanted to give you at least an opportunity to acknowledge what a great tragedy a guy we think a lot of is going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, our hearts break for Kevin. I think all of us are praying for him and his family, that there'll be, it sounds cliche to say, I hope the memories you have will be a source of comfort during these trying times. But it's true. Like, that's what you have. You know, your photographs and memories, as Jim Croce sang. And his son, Tristan, was 26. Noel's 28. We grew up, you know, Kevin and I, as the children grew, the stories that we had. I mean, I remember getting a hold of Kevin when we both lived in the Daytona area. He was about 40 minutes away from me. I was like, let's get the boys together to jam. Let's do it. And then it didn't happen. And, you know, I just had a nice dinner. Kevin treated, nice steakhouse when we were in Niagara Falls. You know, it's funny is I put out a video before Kevin's induction, volunteering my services as the inductor. And it wasn't so ludicrous that it couldn't happen, because on his list of best friends of the business, I might come in like 10 to 12, you know, like he clearly had his crew of guys. But Kevin and I have been good friends for a long time. We were just talking about the light bulb moment he had when he saw Jake.
Yeah.
And decided if Jake could do it, so could he. And he's a really good guy going through a period of time that I wouldn't wish on anyone.
Right.
Let alone such a great guy who loved his son so much. So I do hope that these memories that Kevin has of Tristan will be that source of comfort. I know Kevin appreciated the support. You know, I reached out to him as soon as I heard. And it's just, I learned along the way from but from getting to know families who had children who were going through those really difficult times, some of whom would live and some who would not. I learned from the parents not to say God has a plan or he's in a better place. And I would tell my wife when she would write a card, I said, they don't say that. Please don't say that. Parents don't agree with you most of the time. Because I wrote a short chapter, but a chapter nonetheless called Marcos, about a young man who really made quite an impression on me. And this was the tale I told you about, how we brought him to WWE. I think it was Raw, Penn State. And although I didn't know Batista too well, Marcos said, "Oh, I'd like to be in the." He just looked at the ring. He goes, "I wish I could be in the ring." And Randy Orton looked at Batista without even saying a word, and Batista nodded his head, and he leaned over and he picked up Marcos on his shoulder like it was nothing. And then he stepped up the ring steps. He put him in the ring, and that young man, he just stood there, and he had he had the belt that we'd given him and the hat. All the stuff he was wearing was the stuff that we'd given him. And it was one of the best moments of his life. He died 3 days later. And when I went to his funeral, his mother said, I know they mean well, but don't tell me my son's in a better place. My son should be with me. And I'll never forget that. And I always said, don't tell people that he's in a better, just express your sorrow. And so I can't even imagine. I cannot imagine. So my heart goes out to Kevin
and his lovely
wife, Tamara, and just so sorry for the loss of a child. Just heart. With that in mind, I don't feel right about doing a cameo right now. So,
well, you know what? We'll start the show next week with one.
Next week we'll start it.
We'll start the show with
yeah. Oh, I will. So you know what? In the end, so when it is when someone loses a son, it's a downer.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to pretend that you can just be like the evening news and go from a sad story and then right away, I don't feel like yucking it up after talking about Kevin's son, but I will go back to what I was talking about. Where I talked about learning a lesson as Santa, and that is I went from thinking being Santa was about the number of people who saw you live on TV to realizing it was about creating individual moments. And that goes back into what I was saying several episodes about never letting anyone else dictate to you or define for you what being a success is. So there are guys who yearn to be part of this business, talented, seemingly have what it takes, who don't make it, and then they feel like their career has been a failure. Leon White, to his dying day, felt like his career had been a failure because he wasn't inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Learn to appreciate those things that you did on the journey. Learn to appreciate the journey and not the destination. I have said that one of the biggest challenges we face in wrestling is to be striving to reach for that brass ring while also taking a moment to stop and smell the roses along the way. It's really difficult. Most of us don't do it well, but in wrestling and in life, I think we have to appreciate the good times we have and realize that you don't need to be a star to make an impact.
That's right.
And hopefully leave the world a slightly better place for mankind.
And we hope that we've done that for you guys today. We hope that you'll throw us the like button. If you dig it, please hit the subscribe button. If you think we've earned it, leave us a 5-star rating and ask us questions about anything you'd like. We're fielding your questions all the time here. You can follow the show on Twitter @FoleyIsPod. Until next time, he is @Real Mick Foley. I am @Hey It's Conrad. And you can catch us or introduce our show to the wrestling fan in your life on our YouTube, which is youtube.com/FoleyIsPod. And we'll be back next week. We'll start with a little fun, and then we'll finish by talking about the 25-year anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob.
Oh, nice.
Right here on Foleys Pod.